everybody. Welcome to the next installment of Journey Through John, where we're taking bite-sized chunks of scripture as we work through the book of John and just having a brief discussion and then a little bit of a challenge point at the end. Today, we actually get to start John chapter 9, and it begins with a great story, one of the great ones we see throughout the Gospels, where Jesus heals a man who was born blind. And since we want to keep our time short, let's go ahead and dive into it as we read verses 1 through verse 7. 1 through 7, it says this: As he passed by, this being Jesus, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answered, It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming, when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with the saliva. Then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud and said to him, Go wash in a pool of Siloam, which means sent. And so he went and he washed and he came back seeing. So here we see just the beginning of the story where Jesus is walking by this man who's born blind. And one of the popular beliefs at that time is if something was wrong with you and you were born with some sort of infirmity, what they believed is that either your parents did something wrong and this was a punishment, or you did something wrong, or God knew you would do something wrong and that's why you were punished. And so that's why this question comes out of. It's not something that's really random and like, where did that come from? It was a popular belief at this time. And what Jesus is saying is that this man is not born blind because anybody did anything wrong. This is to glorify God. And so therefore he goes and he heals this man. Once again, another sign it would point to Jesus being who he is, and to also bolster the claims that he was sent by the Father. So we see this, and I have a question that always comes up is, why in the world would Jesus spit on the ground and create a mud and put on this man's eyes? Well, I don't know, and this is speculation, but I do love the idea of, we were made from dirt, and we see that even in Genesis, when Adam was formed, he was formed out of the dirt. And it may have been very well that Jesus was the one that kind of used his hands to carve Adam out of the dirt, and then the Spirit breathed life into him. And maybe this is one way that Jesus kind of spits in the ground and kind of makes mud. And when he puts the mud on the man's eyes, it was almost as though that dirt that finished forming whatever was not formed in that man's eyes, that he was born blind. And so therefore he would be completely healed, because we go from dust to dust. And there's almost this idea that once again Jesus kind of finished the job on what was deficient in this man with the dust. Like I said, it doesn't come out and say that, but that's kind of just an idea that I came to mind when I was reading this and praying through it. And so as we see this piece, we're wondering, well, what can we do with this? It's certainly a great story, and we're going to dive more into it as the week goes on. But what is it about us? I mean, I'm not blind and that sort of thing. But I do think that there is something for us to wrestle with. Are there things in our life, while this man's issue is physically, there's something that was almost unfinished in the sense that he was born blind. What is going on in our life that's unfinished? Are there things that are going on with us spiritually that are unfinished, unresolved even? Things maybe like unforgiveness and bitterness. Are there ill feelings toward one another? Is there something that someone may have said to you a while ago and you're just irritated by it and that sort of thing? There are certainly things that go on in our life, whether it be physically, as this man, we have things that maybe seem unfinished. There are spiritual matters, there are mental issues, there are emotional issues that happen in our life that we can leave them unresolved or unfinished. And I don't believe that's where Jesus wants us to be. So whatever it is that you may be wrestling with, whatever the challenge was, maybe someone is at fault and they are actually wrong. They did something wrong. It's their fault. They should be brought to justice in this in some way. The reality is this: if we're sitting back and nothing's happening there, and we are banking on retribution of some sort, or the fact that at least someone will admit that I'm right in this, the reality is that oftentimes we're sitting back and we are punishing ourselves by not leaving this thing unfinished instead of taking it to Jesus. And so that's the challenge today. What is unfinished in your life? What is going on in your world, whether you've been offended, whether you've been hurt, whether people have put you down, or whether you just felt like you've been all alone and ostracized from other people? Whatever that may be, lay that at the feet of Jesus, because he can heal this man of his physical infirmity, but the reality is he can also bring us a wholeness, spiritually speaking, emotionally speaking, as well as mentally. And so that's my challenge today. I hope as soon as you turn this off, you take a little bit of time to reflect on that, and maybe it would challenge you, and maybe during a time of prayer you'd feel a little bit of healing in that. I hope that challenges you, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow as we continue to journey through John.